everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Seed Speaks. My name is Ashley Robinson. I'm the editor of the Alberta Seed Guide, and today I'll be acting as your host for this episode. On today's episode of Seed Speaks, we're discussing if your farm or company's social media policy is up to snuff. We have a few guests here to join us today to discuss this. Thank you to Charles Tweed and Crystal Mackay for joining us. And so for those watching, please don't hesitate to ask any questions you may have for our guests in the chat box. And let's start with getting to know our panelists. Charles, can you tell me a bit more about your company, Tweedia, and how you came to found it?
Yeah, thanks, Ash, for having me. First of all, I guess my name's Charles Tweed. I own and operate Tweedia in Brandon, Manitoba, right in the center of Canada. For our viewers, I guess, not familiar with Canada. We run a number of corporate media accounts, primarily in social media, a few oil and gas accounts out in Alberta, but primarily we're in the agricultural industry, really working to kind of develop brand strategy, their content from their photos to their voice, and then of course pushing them across multiple platforms. And those brands primarily sell through Western Canada, North America, and then a few multinationals that sell around the world.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Crystal, can you tell me about Loft 32 and how it came to be?
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Loft 32, we created, myself and my partner Maggie created back in 2019 with a problem-solving approach to say if our vision is to elevate conversations on food and farming, then we need to focus on people that work in the sector. And we do that with we call it the talent stable of good people that are speakers, trainers, and people that can work with us on projects. So helping the industry do a better job telling stories, whether that's in person, media, and social media, of course, is where we spend a lot of our time.
Perfect. Thank you guys both so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to this discussion, and let's get going on questions. So my first question is for Charles. Since starting Tweedia, what have you found about our company's main concerns when it comes to social media?
Probably the biggest one when we're sitting down with business owners is the thing that stands out is they really don't want to go viral for the wrong reasons. So I think just because obviously they're so connected with the business, a lot of their blood, sweat, and tears has gone into it. And then when you think about social media, those gaffes or going viral for the wrong reasons are so highly publicized that it really sticks out in their head that they want to make sure that they're managing their brand and their reputation. And we understand that. Anybody that obviously has owned a business knows, it really becomes an extension of who you are as a person. It really is your baby. So primarily that first conversation is around a lot. What is it going to look like? We don't want to step in, hot water. And then we kind of get into, okay, what can we do from here?
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. It's almost scary when you first approach the world of social media and the fact that we do see things go viral. So, of course, you don't want to end up being famous for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, and it probably doesn't happen as often as our brain tells us that it happens, right? Like just the fact that when it does happen, it's so front and center that we really connect back to it when we start to think about what our brand's going to sound like or how it's going to interact on social media.
Definitely. And Crystal, what surprises you when it comes to companies and their social media policies?
Well, I would start by saying a lot don't have them. So that's the first place that surprises me is it's a fairly new territory as far as policies go. So to just encourage people the value of having a social media policy and then how to turn policy into action to really make it that people are living and breathing it, that it's not just a document in their in their document folders. So the concept of having conversations with your employees about being good brand ambassadors and how they act in person as well as on social media, it surprises me the number of people that haven't had that conversation. And then to Charles's point, then it comes up when it's a problem.
Yeah, those are all really good points. I feel that a lot of the times when you look at a lot of workplaces and stuff, so social media has been thought of as an afterthought. And then, especially in the last few years with the pandemic, when we saw that we needed ways to connect to our audiences and stuff, it really suddenly became forefront that, oh, yeah, social media is important. And my next question is, as a company, how do I start to make a social media strategy? What do I need to include in it? And I'll just throw that out to whoever wants to start answering first.
Sure. I mean, obviously, there's some forethought into um, what your voice is going to sound like. There's a lot of questions that you should start to think about. Realistically, though, if you kind of think about your social media content as a circle, at the epicenter, you want to start talking about who you are, what you do, where you do it, when you do it, and then if you can re-ask yourself all those questions, why? So why are your people who your people are? Why did your business get started? All of those fundamental questions, because there's a lot of threads to pull on as far as your communication goes on social media there. And then once you nail that down, really, you have to start thinking about platforms, frequency, all those good things. And I mean, agriculture lives on Twitter. I call Twitter the new coffee shop for agriculture. It's just so vital to agriculture right now, and you see it on the producer level where guys have issues, and within they might post a problem on Twitter, and within an hour they have 100 responses, and those are so valuable, that crowdsourcing, because you're not getting what people think you should do. You're getting people that have often dealt directly with those problems. So that's just such a valuable resource, right? And if you continue down the line, you have to start thinking about response strategies. We see a number of companies that are what we call serial posters. So they post every day, but there's no one actually in those accounts, in those platforms, creating conversation or even answering basic questions that people are asking on their posts, which, I mean, that's just a huge faux pas, right? Like, for someone to ask a question about your company and someone not get back to them, and then it live there for 100 people to see, it's terrible, right? It's bad customer services. And you get into the types of posting, your call to action, your fun, your behind the scenes. There really is so much to think about. Who's your ideal client or audience? Are you going to use photos or videos? Who in your office can do video? That's not always the owner. Sometimes that's Jill at reception, who, when you put her on camera, just resonates, right? So there really is a lot of thought that needs to go into that front end conversation, and that's before you get into the back end of ad buys, retargeting warm audiences, cold audiences, kind of that second level of social media marketing that we see across Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn. And are you going to install Pixel on your website so that you can put content back in front of people? And I could talk about this forever. There really is a lot to it now, right? And understanding what you're going to sound like and who you are at the beginning is paramount for how you're going to kind of navigate that journey through to the end.
Thanks, Charles. You said so much there, and it sounds scary, but it also makes me really realize and understand how you were able to start a company to help people walk them through all these steps. Because it really, if you want to do social media right, sometimes you need help.
Yeah, it's a full-time job now, right? And a lot of companies want to dump it on someone it becomes one of their secondary tasks, whether that's someone at the front desk, but you need a lot of skills to be able to kind of run the gamut when it comes to ultimately your public facing business now, right? Your entire communication strategy in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. And Crystal, do you have anything to add on there?
Yeah, I would, all amazing thoughts from Charles. I would add on, before you get to the social media piece, just kind of backing out of that for a second and just saying, I view social media as just another way of sharing your story. So if you think about, Charles's comments around who you are and what your voice is going to be and what your messages are to your audience, that applies to whether you're sending an employee out to have a conversation with a potential client or member, or in person, they're giving a talk, they're doing posting something on social media. And so this concept of equipping your employees to be good brand ambassadors, regardless of where they are. And social media is a newer space, but employees and team members have always been brand ambassadors. So I like to position the social media discussion with the teams as this is part of your opportunity. You don't have to be scared to be part of the conversation. And so getting some personal buy-in, as well as to Charles's point about how to get the company account set up. All your, they say the average person in Canada has 300 people in their social network, and I would guess our younger team members have even a lot more than that. So each employee can have a role and an opportunity to be part of the social media conversation too, with some training and guidance.
Thank you. And it is such a big thing. Are there any resources out there that if I'm looking to start working on the social media policy, or even up my social media game, what resources are out there for me to be able to go and look at or to reach out to?
Well, I can start with one that we built myself together with a farmer named Andrew Campbell, who has his handle is Fresh Air Farmer, who is a former journalist who's gone home to farm. And as he says, he thinks about communications while he's milking cows now. And so we created a platform called Utensil.ca, helpful tool for people in food and farming. And there's a new course he just launched that's literally how to build better social engagement. And this is from very practical advice. So there's that one. And then to my point about equipping people to be good brand ambassadors, regardless of where they are, there is another online module called Grow Your Brand. And it starts with their personal brand, and then it goes to how they represent their company or organization, and then how people represent the whole food system. So before you worry about equipping them, talking about the whole food system, just to get them a little more personally aware and how their personal brand and the company or organization brand can intersect. So those are a couple options that we created by demand. People in the agriculture industry, whether they were farmers or agribusiness reps, asked us to provide these on-demand courses so people can take them. And then companies or associations can host workshops and do some additional training after that as well.
And Charles?
Yeah, to build off that, we do a lot of the same thing. When we're brought in to handle a company's corporate accounts, we're often sitting down with the employees as well and going through that same training programs. You're so right. Like, employees really are your best asset, right? And we do a lot of work at how we're going to present a brand and what they sound like. But the truth is, it resonates different coming from a real person in your office with their face at the top of their profile, right? It just hits differently on social media. So yeah, the more you can bring them into the fold, the better. And I mean, realistically, there's a lot of data and research done on the fact that if you have strong social media communication, if your employees are involved, you have better retention, you have better recruitment. And if there's one thing I think every business owner is acutely aware of, I think labor is going to be a very difficult proposition over the coming decades. So your social media strategy is going to help or hinder that. I'm kind of getting a little bit off topic, but yeah, there's some great software out there, obviously, that'll help you design graphics, Canvas of the world, through to Buffer that lets you post across multiple platforms. Simple things like podcasts, right, that you can turn on in the shower just so that you can keep some learning ongoing. And then, going, I think, back to the beginning is kind of truthfully people like myself and like Crystal inviting us in to sit down with your employees to talk about, what it looks like, how it can help, all of those good things, because kind of that interaction back and forth where we can answer questions right there is pretty vital.
Yeah, all really good points there. And I think you guys were getting into some future questions that I have, and we're actually getting from the audience. We're getting a lot of questions about how do you really handle social media with employees? I know we have two questions from the audience there. I think I'll go with Mark Sinkowitz one, which is how do you allow employees to have a unique personality online, but at the same time ensure that their posts are in line with company values? And I know when I asked you guys to speak here today, I was kind of saying about how do you police your employees with their personal accounts if they're using them for work, but still make sure they're being themselves and promoting the company too.
Well, I'll start on that one to say the best place to start the conversation about being a good brand ambassador and specifically online is as part of onboarding. So it's not a surprise later on, but it should be part of your new employee onboarding discussions to say, let's have a conversation about how you're repping our brand all the time and how does that interact with your personal brand. I think it's really important to give employees the freedom to have some personality and in their posts and to share their personal experiences. As Charles said, it gives it some color commentary, and it's not something to be afraid of. And but I think it's the key to success is to just be really clear about what's in scope in terms of the value proposition and the values piece, and what's out of scope to say what would be considered offside. So swearing, excessive party pictures, something along those lines. And this is pretty new territory. It's only in the last 10 or 15 years where we've seen these kinds of things really happening. So I'd say the best place is to have the conversation early on and then regularly. So it can be like part of a monthly staff meeting or a quarterly get together to just say, let's talk about our presence online and how we're doing, and just to remind everybody about what's in scope. And then if there's something that's clearly offside, that you make it really simple and clear. So because you shouldn't be policing, and you don't, who has time for that, to police all their employees' accounts. So as to Charles's point, if you help them own the social media strategy to say, we value your voice in sharing messages about what you're working on, then it's not something that should have to be policed.
Yeah, all really good points there. And Charles, is there anything else you'd like to add on?
Yeah, I policies is almost a dirty word in my books. I think a lot of people want to create the policy without having the strategy first, right? They're immediately talking to their employees about what they can't do instead of talking to them about what they can do, right? So if you show them kind of the roadmap and the strategy, and they start to understand not only what you're doing, but why you're doing it, how it helps the company, how it helps them. You start to understand that they can play within that rule book, right? And they can do it really well. When you're only talking to them about what they can't do, it really does stifle people's creativity a little bit, and it's not really the place you want to start. And I think the second thing employees need to understand, and they are, is that they're a brand too. So uh, if you can't understand why this is important to this company, you're not going to understand why it's important to the next one, and the next one isn't going to hire you unless you understand it's important over here. So understanding really that you're a brand as well when you're taking those photos from the field, when you're posting about seed rates or whatever it is, that ultimately you're building your own brand in agriculture yourself, right? So it's as important, or it should be as important to them about thinking about what they're posting and playing within the rules as it is to the company.
All really, really great points there. And it kind of plays in stuff that I thought in my own mind previously, but I never really had the whole system worked out there. And I want to ask another question from the audience here from Alex Hahn. And she's asking, you've already mentioned tone. How do you identify the right tone to take since social media can be rather casual? And I feel like we've been kind of playing around this bit, and with both talking about how employees should post and then how they should post as a company. So let's get down to the details on this.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff has to happen, or tone happens organically, right? You can't fake it. You shouldn't make it. If and it really ultimately in any good organization starts at the top. So we have companies where we walk a tightrope. Like we're pretty edgy, and we'll say a lot of things that people on other corporate accounts might not like or might think that it's over the line, but that's part of who they are, right? And they don't mind living in that space and having fun and almost talking like they're in the field, right? A little bit of that sound that you'd hear when guys and girls are talking by the combine or the tractor, and then other accounts aren't comfortable with that at all. So your tone ultimately comes from the top, and as long as you can kind of uh, obviously you start small and you kind of start moving the lines of where you're comfortable at the beginning, but it really does, as I say, go back to the top, and it has to be organic and it has to be authentic to you. If you're going to fake it in agriculture, people are going to see it immediately. It's one of the best industries we work in, but if you don't understand the industry and you're trying to fake it, like you'll be seen as a fraud like that, right? So I guess tone is unique and it should be yours. It might take a little while for you to find it, but just keep kind of moving within those lines as you go.
All really good points there. I like how you're saying ag is all about being real, because I definitely agree with that. And Crystal, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Uh, no, I would just echo Charles's point about being authentic and to give people permission to show some personality. That's where you get the really good engagement. If you just have the straight facts and the about our product and about our company, it's not as fun as when you get some personality in it. So that's when you'll get more engagement. Years ago, someone shared with me that you should share at least 20% personal content on your personal channels instead of just company content all the time. So, my Twitter handle includes my bio says I'm like one of the top 5 funniest people I know. So, if I had a very serious Twitter account, people would be disappointed in me because I'm not being true to myself and who I am in real life.
Thank you. And the one thing about social media is it's constantly changing. Like, I know I always see headlines coming out, and I follow a lot of Instagram influencers, and they're all like, I'm not getting as much engagement anymore because the formulas change. So, we're always seeing constant change with the social media platforms. So, how can you keep up with the changes on social media and make sure that your social media strategy still works? Because it's one thing that you can't just put together the strategy, put it there, hand it out to the employees and say, do this. You have to constantly be working on it from what I can tell.
Well, I'll start with try new things. Charles mentioned agriculture loves Twitter, and I do a lot of food accounts as well. Foodies love Instagram. And so to not be afraid to try some new things, particularly video, the industry needs to move to more video. My kids are in their early teens and they only watch videos. They don't look up anything else other than by video. So I would encourage people to definitely take more chances using reels and stories and sharing videos, TikToks to try new things, at least to get started on a channel. And then to bring in experts to help you if you're not reaching the goals that you think you should be.
Yeah, those are all great points. Pay attention to how you're using the channels, right? Because that's how other people are using it. So try to be mindful of how you use those channels. Like 6 months ago, people didn't live in reels, and now people live in the reels section, right? You can just see them going through there. So if you're not getting in there, then obviously you're not getting in front of those people. And you mentioned a little bit of the personality, the personal touches. Like it's still social media. It's meant to be fun, right? If you're hammering me with the sales pitch every day, I'm tuning you out almost immediately, right? So give me some of the behind the scenes photos. Let me see faces. Let me see when you made mistakes, right? We know you made mistakes. So let me see some of your mistakes and how you work to correct them. Let me see the staff barbecue. Like all of those things are ultimately what really connects you to people. And I mean, people only enter their sales windows when they're comfortable to enter their sales window, or in seasonal times, right? So selling to them all summer when really they only buy in the spring doesn't make sense. But if you can just keep connecting with them when they do come into that sales window, bang, you're top of mind, right? Because they've connected with you in the past. And there really has to be the mind shift of, instead of talking at people, you're trying to talk with people, right? It's not the traditional media where it's one to many. This is one to one. You should be thinking of a specific person when you're posting and how they're going to interact with this. On Twitter or Instagram or many of these other channels, we only see businesses posting. Well, you can go and join a conversation. You don't always have to start it, right? So there's uh, I there's a lot there again. So yeah, just probably the biggest thing I'd say is be mindful about how you're using it, because that's ultimately how your clients or your best audience is using it as well.
You guys have said so many great points, and I think we could really go on for hours talking about this. I know I'm learning myself so much. I run a few different accounts for Seed World Group, and I'm learning some things right now that I'm like, oh, I need to do that myself with these accounts that I'm running. So we have just a few more minutes, so I thought I'd just throw it out to each of you to just say any final closing comments that you have on this. Crystal, how about yourself first?
Sure. I would say it's hard to narrow it down, but I would say the most important thing is the way I look at social media, starting with the policy and going through to the actions, is it's really another way to have conversations just with larger numbers of people. So to be conversational, to be mindful of your tone and who you are and what messages you want to share, and to really encourage to not be one person just managing a channel, but rather think of your channel and all of the people around you as ways to amplify whatever messages you want to share. So to equip your team and your staff, people around you, with tools that they feel they're part of the strategy and they can help elevate the messages with their personal voices as part of it.
Thank you. And Charles, any final points from yourself?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't already started, get started. It's not going anywhere, right? And in a lot of ways, social media is becoming the new list, right? If you're a business owner, people are going to ask you about your following, your engagement levels in the future, right? This is all where it's heading. So the sooner you can get in there, start slow, but make sure that you're establishing those corporate accounts, that you have a social media strategy. Yeah, have fun with it, right? It's, as I said, um, it's it's not going away, and it's only going to grow. And when you look at, we think of influencers a lot of ways in, people think of Kim Kardashian or Justin Bieber, but we have producers in southwestern Manitoba that have 4,000 followers, and when they say something about some of the brands we work, it resonates and it means something. It's incredibly important. So if you're not in the space yet, you probably should start taking a serious examination of why that is.
Thanks, guys. This was such a great conversation. Unfortunately, it's all the time we have for today, but I just want to say once again, thank you to Charles and Crystal for being here to discuss social media with us. And maybe we'll catch up again in the future, because I definitely feel we just scratched the surface of this topic.
Thanks, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. It would be great to continue the conversation.
And for those watching, thank you for tuning in. And if you missed part of today's live stream, don't worry, we'll have it available on demand on Facebook and YouTube. If you have any questions about the subject or ideas for future topics we should tackle, please send a message to Seed World Group's Facebook page or feel free to reach out to myself. And next week, join us for a preview of ASTA's upcoming leadership conference. We hope you join us and see you next week.